Thanks for joining us this morning, everyone, and thanks, Liv, for letting people through. We may get a few more adding in as we go through the early slides, but we'll crack on. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Hopefully the next 45 minutes or so is going to be really useful for you all today. We've had lots of registrations. AI is obviously a really hot topic in general at the moment. I think you would have to have been living in a cave somewhere if you've not been bombarded with information about new AI tools popping out all over the place in the last few months. So that's what we're going to be exploring today, but obviously through the lens of social housing in particular. Before we begin today's session, we just wanted to quickly touch on the fact that this session is actually our 3rd anniversary of the Housing Hive, which is quite staggering. The whole idea came about as a virtual cuppa with our clients in lockdown. So when we all went into lockdown in March 2020, we wanted to make sure everyone was okay, to help share ideas and concerns about navigating the pandemic and how you mobilize workforces, how you respond to crisis, customer communications, and how you could be proactive with responses in that time. We've had such a great response to we opened up sessions to the wider contacts in the sector, and we're in a really unique position, having worked in the housing space for over 20 years. We have contacts pretty much in every housing association in the country. So we wanted to kind of build upon that already collaborative nature of the housing sector to bring people together to discuss sector trends and challenges, changes, share ideas. And we've come a long way since that first session 3 years ago. We're really proud of the community that we've brought together in that time. And since then, we've had over 1,000 signups. We've had over 50 topics covered, and we've got a fantastic community that we're really, really proud of. Now, I am just going to, as we move forward, just get the next slide in front of me. So a bit of housekeeping before we get into the session. So some of you on the call today will have been to Hives before. Some of you might be first-time attendees. We will introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about Prodo very, very briefly. We're not going to bore you with the sales creds on this call. If everyone could stay muted for now, that'd be great. And we'll be recording the session and we'll be posting a video of the session later on. Do feel free to use the chat function. My colleague Liv will be dropping in some links into the chat pane, so look out for those. And also Liv and Joe, who are on the call, will be able to kind of field any comments or questions that come up in the chat. Of course, we'll be going through our main topic of the day, unlocking the potential of AI in social housing, including some use cases for practical applications and a bit of a look at the kind of the bigger picture, the art of the possible here too. And then at the end, we'll save some time for some Q&A with everyone, just in case anyone has any comments or questions, wants to ask any of the Prodo team a question. We will do our very best to answer. So just a little bit about Prodo. So first of all, my name's Jen. I'm not normally the host of the Housing Hive. My colleague Jacob normally hosts these very, very capably. So apologies for any technical hiccups along the way today. I'm head of client services at Prodo. I've been with the business for about 8 years now, I think, and seen a lot of change in that time. But I've worked exclusively with our housing sector clients during that time, and I'm really proud of the relationships that we build in the sector. I'm going to hand you over to Jan, my colleague to my left, to introduce himself.
So hello, everyone. My name is Jan. I'm a technical architect here at Prodo. So this is my first Hive. I've been with Prodo for just over 6.5 years. So I oversee the products, the project we work on that involves pitch meetings, development, making sure the projects are delivered on time. I'm also involved in estimates of the new projects. So my interest with the AI came in 2014 when Tesla actually released its first autopilot. That's where my interest came from, when I was able to see the object detections, pedestrians, and basically everything to do with the AI. I was heavily involved in the app development as well, which involves an AI. So we built the engine which sits behind all the products and services we will talk about.
So Jan is the brains behind lots of the clever solutions that we put together for clients, particularly looking at how we can use AI to support some of the platforms and solutions we bring to the sector. I'm going to hand you over to a couple of other colleagues now to introduce themselves. So we've got Liv on the call.
Hi, I'm Liv. I'm a senior account manager here at Prodo. I've been here coming up 2 years, but I also worked here about 6 or 7 years ago. Whenever Jen started, I was here then too. So good I've worked here twice. I look after a lot of our housing clients and really getting interested in how AI can kind of effectively support tenants in and the housing associations in detecting all the kind of things that are coming up within this presentation. I'll hand over to Jo.
Thanks, Liv. So I'm Jo. I'm another one of the senior account managers here at Prodo. Similar to Liv, I've been here just coming up on 2 years. And yeah, work alongside Liv and Jen within the client services team to look after lots of our lovely housing association clients. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Liv. Thank you, Jo. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Prodo, hopefully many of you are, otherwise you won't be on the call today. But we've been working in the housing sector for over 20 years. And in that time, we've worked with hundreds of housing associations, so providers like yourselves, helping them solve challenges in terms of how do you engage digitally with your customer base? How do you support efficient operations? How do you deliver great experiences for customers and colleagues? And obviously a key part of that is looking at new and emerging technology and how we can bring that to the fore. We're also the obviously the founders of the Housing Hive, which has now been going for 3 years. And we're the authors of the Shift book, which I'd be amazed if there's anyone left in the country that doesn't have a copy, but you can get a digital copy now. And I think Liv's going to be sharing the link to be able to download that in the chat. We also are the minds behind Franklin, the first SaaS-based customer self-service portal, and more recently the Frank app, which is our native mobile application, which Jan has been very, very heavily involved in the creation and maintenance of. Okay, so moving on, if you have missed any hives in the past, if you're interested in catching up on what we've been talking about in previous sessions, we do record and publish all of our webinars. So if you'd like to share today's content with any of your colleagues, revisit it, or even look back at any of our past sessions, we'd encourage you to go over to our video hub and have a watch or a listen. The likelihood is we'll have covered a topic that you're interested in terms of customer engagement, digital transformation, channel shift, and all of the good things that encompasses. Today's episode is going to be edited and then launched later on today or tomorrow. So we'll be sending a link to all who have registered for today's session. You'll get that link in the follow-up, but you'll also then be able to access all that good stuff from previous sessions too. Okay, so moving on to today's topic, artificial intelligence. So we'll do a quick definition in terms of the topic itself, just so we're all on the same page. The advancements in AI this year have been remarkable and opened up new and exciting possibilities for various industries. The social housing space is no exception, and there are numerous use cases where the potential of AI can be harnessed to help enhance customer experience and streamline operational processes. And that really feeds into kind of a bit of a mantra for Prodo. You know, everything that we do, we want to look at how do we make services better, whether that's for customers, colleagues, business functions as a whole, and looking at delighting users. So making sure that not only are they getting great outcomes and efficient outcomes, but actually, you know, having a bit of delight in that along the way, making that a really good experience that creates stickiness with the people that are using these solutions. As we're bombarded with countless LinkedIn posts and articles about ChatGPT and other OpenAI tools, we need to explore the broader potential of AI in social housing. So how can we leverage the capabilities of AI to tackle familiar issues in the sector? So artificial intelligence involves the development of computer systems capable of performing human tasks, which traditionally would have required human intelligence and obviously human time and input to progress. And these tasks include visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, language transition, and problem solving. Oh, it's just not moving on. So when we think about traditional computing versus AI, what are the core differences? So data-driven decision-making. One of the key differences between AI and traditional computing is that AI systems are designed to use data to make decisions and predictions. Traditional computing systems rely on predefined rules and instructions to execute tasks, whereas AI systems can analyze data and learn from it to make more informed decisions. Adaptability. So AI systems are designed to learn and adapt over time, whereas traditional computing systems are typically static and don't change unless explicitly modified by humans. So going back to that kind of human instruction, human intervention needed at all times. AI systems can improve their performance by analysing data and identifying patterns, which allows them to adapt to new and changing situations. We also then want to think about human-like reasoning. AI systems designed to mimic human-like reasoning and decision-making. Processes such as pattern recognition, making predictions and understanding natural language. Traditional computing systems, on the other hand, are typically limited to executing tasks that are predefined by humans. And complexity. So AI systems are often more complex than traditional computing systems, as they involve the use of advanced algorithms, machine learning models, and large data sets, for example. Traditional computing systems, by contrast, are often simpler and rely on fixed sets of rules and instructions. Now, we'll come on to some specific use cases later, but an easy way to compare is if you take a normal website. The code that powers the website is written and configured to have a very specific predefined set of rules and instructions by people like Jan and our web developers. If the user clicks the how to report a repair button, for example, in a customer portal, and opens the set content page underneath the link to reveal the text for them to consume. A comparable application of AI here could be interpreting the data provided by the user regarding how to report a repair, whether that's text or speech or imagery, and use the interpretation of that to search all of the data within the website and integrated databases to return the most appropriate answer based on the user's inquiry, ensuring the output is returned in the same language as the user's input. Now, some logic in here could say that after the output is returned, the user clicks the thank you button, and then that process was a success, and therefore it will become more accurate over time for similar inquiries, essentially learning as it builds that data set over time. In reality, AI has been around for a really long time. Like Jan mentioned, Tesla back in 2014 coming out with the first autopilot for their cars. But like any technology, it can take time, maturity, testing, ongoing development, successful examples before it's widely used and adopted. We can think back and potentially remember a time before we all had the internet all the time, before we had email, more recently before we all had social media platforms. It's difficult to imagine life without any of those things now, or almost impossible. And the growing popularity of AI is no secret at all. The market for AI in healthcare is projected to reach 32.6 billion by 2026, according to a report by Markets. A survey by Deloitte found that 70% of respondents are using AI in some capacity in their businesses, with the majority using it for process automation, decision-making, and customer service. And the adoption of AI by enterprises has grown 270% over the last 4 years, according to Gartner. Now, that's a huge shift and a huge potential marketplace in terms of AI. And obviously, it's something that we just can't ignore in terms of how it's finding its way into, everyday lives, everyday processes, work every day for all of our businesses, whether we're housing providers, whether we're digital agencies, whether we're healthcare providers, and so on. So adoption of AI is increasing in various industries, and we wanted to look very quickly at what that looks like. So from healthcare, finance, retail, and marketing. In healthcare, for example, AI is being used to develop personalized treatment plans, to identify potential health risks, to improve medical imaging analysis, but also could be used potentially for things like more intelligent matching of sort of donated organs, for example, and be able to speed up good outcomes for patients, to be able to marry up availability of services, availability of consumables like that, to be able to support really good patient outcomes. In finance, AI is being used for fraud detection, risk management, and investment analysis. So looking at that pattern recognition really, and prediction of potential outcomes. In retail, AI is being used to personalize customer experiences, to improve supply chain management, and to optimize pricing strategies. And in manufacturing, AI is being used to improve quality control, to optimize production schedules, and reduce equipment downtime. So we can see there's lots of benefits really around kind of efficiency gains. And Jan, I wondered if there was any other thoughts you had in terms of that operational efficiency and pattern recognition.
Yes, so we do actually use AI internally for the internal processes. So a good example is, for example, the server CPU utilization and the memory usage. So we used the Microsoft framework for that. So the AI can actually recognize CPU utilization. It can predict when to expect, for example, high traffic on the websites, and we can sort of prepare ahead. We can automatically increase all those resources required. Another good example would be the app. So obviously with the app, the efficiencies, the process, which took 10 steps, let's say the tenant has to step through the application. It takes 10 steps to go through the actual application process. With the AI, we could shorten this process. Sometimes we could even halve this.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Jan. And I think that also goes back to that idea of, moving away from very static models of things and becoming more elastic, I guess, and more flexible, but ultimately supporting more effective and efficient working across all of these sectors. So there are some key contributors in terms of the growing adoption of AI. So advancements in technology, such as more powerful processors and improved algorithms, which are enabling the development of more sophisticated and capable AI systems. I think if you look at any social media platform, TikTok in particular, LinkedIn in particular, the vast majority of the content we're seeing day to day at the moment is about new AI tools coming out that can support any type of work you might want to consider, even things like writing content for your website. So rather than having to manually write all of your content, actually that can be reduced to writing some prompts and keywords, giving some instruction around tone of voice, and actually then checking the output and using that in your web platforms. The availability of data is playing a critical role as it provides the raw material for AI systems to learn and adapt over time. In addition, industries are facing increasing pressures to automate and improve efficiency due to factors such as high costs. And obviously that's a particularly big driver at the moment, given today's economic situation. And finally, customer expectations will also be a driving factor. The need for AI as customers increasingly expect a more personalized experience, more efficient and effective services from all of the organizations that they engage with day to day. And the same will be true of their housing providers too. So just some example use cases in terms of AI itself. So we have, and I am going to be leaning on Jan for this because this certainly sort of steps outside of my technical capability. So first of all, we've got natural language processing, NLP, which involves teaching machines to understand and interpret human language, both written and spoken. Examples of NLP include chatbots, virtual assistants, and sentiment analysis. Image recognition. So this involves teaching machines to recognize and classify visual information such as images or videos. Examples of image recognition include facial recognition. So think about your biometric login for your devices, object detection, and self-driving cars. Going back to Jan's Tesla example again. I had no idea it was 2014. That seems like such a long time ago. Predictive analytics. So this involves using statistical models and machine learning algorithms to analyze data and predict future outcomes. Now, examples of predictive analytics include fraud detection, credit scoring, and demand forecasting. And, in a social housing space, we can think about predictive modeling for, anticipating need, whether that's around money support, whether it's around repair support, whether it's around predictive maintenance and so on. So we are now going to think specifically around how we can use AI within the social housing space and what some good use cases might look like. What we've covered so far is obviously a bit of an overview of AI itself, its growing popularity, and how other industries are using it. So let's focus specifically on social housing. Now, we've got a few examples here. It's by no means an exhaustive list, but we do only have 45 minutes in the diary today. We would love to talk to any of you directly if you do have any thoughts around how you'd like to think about using AI for your organisation. And again, feel free to pop ideas in the chat if you've got any thoughts around how you're using it or thinking about using it, or ideas that are coming to the fore for you. Based on what we hear from our client base in the housing sector, as well as the challenges we uncover as part of our consultancy services we run with housing providers, these examples are quite typical in terms of common agenda items that we look to help with the improve the efficiency of. Bear with me one second. And I'm sure these will all sound familiar to you in terms of common challenges. So there's potential for AI to assist with each of these points, some of which we've already experienced and we're working on, others which we are developing emerging solutions in the background now. So thinking around sort of the problems around damp and mold, accurate repair diagnosis, defect and repair resolution, asset recognition and management, managing customer contact volume and helping to reduce high demand, and also overcoming language barriers. So we're going to talk a little bit more about each of these potential use cases. So we're all familiar with the very high profile status around damp and mold at the moment. And obviously it's a perennial problem. There is a lot of attention in the sector around it. And many of the organizations that we're talking to are looking at specific solutions for damp and mold. We're seeing a huge influx of reports from customers, which obviously increases demand on call centres and on your teams in terms of how you handle those inquiries from customers. And there will be a lot of anxiety and concern from your customers around damp and mold at the moment. Now, obviously, all of those reports at the moment require manual handling in terms of, taking the report, the interpretation and diagnosis of that report. And accuracy of that data is going to be really, really key, obviously based on the potential harm that this problem can deliver to customers. So accuracy is really a key steering point in terms of prioritization of any actions around damp and mold for your properties. Now, from a proactive point of view, we see more emphasis being placed on damp and mold checks in stock condition surveys, general housing officer visits, but obviously in terms of reports coming from customers as well. Jan, how can AI help potentially with damp and mold reporting and analysis and interpretation?
So maybe we can go back to the AI. So the AI is like a generic term that's used in computer science. So the AI is actually split into, we got machine learning, we got the deep learning, and a deep learning, this is where damp and mold fits. So basically, just to talk a little bit about the technology we've used. So we are using Microsoft Cognitive Services for the damp and mold detection. We had to request quite a few images from all the clients we have. And so the way the AI works, you have to feed all those images into the interface. You don't have to label those images initially. So you need to be able to tell which one is mold, which one is damp. Obviously, once you've got enough images fed into it, let's say 500 images per classification, that may be enough for it to carry on and learning on its own. In some cases, this may not be enough. So it is all about the time you invest in the first place. So obviously, we've done this model. We've got the first proof of concept, and we are now working on the product for damp and mold. So a good example with damp and mold is we've got a tenant who would like to raise a repair, but he or she is not sure if it's a damp or mold. So they can use our web version, which can actually be integrated into the app, or could be a web version as well. So they can take a photo, and what the AI model will do, it will run through different patterns, and it will try to predict the percentage of damp or mold. We've even looked into using like a humidity sensors in the future, which would increase the accuracy of a damp and mold. For this proof of concept, we get the percentage back from the AI model. So let's say if we know it's a 70% damp, we give an option to the tenant to raise a repair or report it to their housing team. We can also prioritize. So if they raise multiple repairs or they take photos of multiple damp and mold pictures, let's say on a wall or on a window, we can then prioritize those based on the results that comes back from the AI. But again, this can be applied to different kind of objects or classifications. So we already have top 5 objects trained within the AI model. So these were like a top 10 raised objects or top 10 raised repairs that came from one of the housing associations throughout the last 12 months, I think. So yeah, we've got those 5 objects. We are aiming for the next 5 in the next 6 months as well. So yeah, that's the time thing.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, it's a really good example of how that image recognition aspect that we talked about earlier can be applied here to really assist customers in reporting problems and actually, compress what can be a multi-step, potentially a sort of barrier-riddled process for customers and kind of compress that down into the simplest form of just upload a photo, the AI will interpret the photo, and then we confirm and move forward into reporting that problem. Now, giving customers a really simple way to report that problem is going to be really key. I think also there's a psychological angle to this as well. So if customers are able to see, a readout from the AI model telling them, giving them an indication of what the problem looks like, it's clearly being analysed, and then it gives them that reassurance that it's being passed on. Something is going to happen with that problem. So the following steps is then to keep on top of that to ensure the customer is updated on progress and status changes. But the solution that we're developing is all about making it really easy for customers to report those problems and have a consistent way of that information being passed into the housing provider to be able to handle that a report for customers. Now, damper mold obviously isn't the only thing we can use image recognition for. So Jan touched on repair diagnosis, and we've already developed a number of models in terms of image and voice recognition to be able to support with reporting other types of problems. A future release of our native self-service mobile app will have image recognition and NLP incorporated to help build upon repair diagnosis, which AI is a key part of. Now, the problem this aims to solve is the accuracy around repair diagnostics, which can take time and effort to rectify. We've heard of examples of where incorrect trades are being selected when people report repairs, therefore the repairs appointment becomes void. It's not successful first time. That creates frustration and more cost and time for you as a provider. It creates more frustration for the customer. So again, another example of how image recognition, NLP, can be used to support really accurate and consistent diagnostics to be able to support good outcomes and support better prioritization of issues going forwards. Now, back in the day, I think it was 2020, we first started looking at how can we use image recognition. And our first touch point here was to look at asset recognition as a specific use case. We launched a boiler identification check tool with Housing Solutions back in late 2020, 21. And we wanted to get ahead of the influx of winter heating and hot water problems, which were often difficult and inefficient to deal with because of inconsistent asset management data. There was a particular challenge that was identified with Housing Solutions around the level of asset data they held around their boilers. And this was a way of effectively backfilling that information, but getting customers on board with the idea of using this kind of tool, which is presented as a very kind of simple, single screen conversational interface where they just, with a few simple taps and an upload of an image, they can actually kind of then feed that information back to their housing provider. Jan, any other thoughts around the sort of asset recognition angle here?
Yes, so especially with the boiler detection, so every boiler looks pretty much like a fridge. So you got a white square or rectangle. So it was a bit of a challenge, but we had to sort of focus on boiler dials. So obviously every make has got a different kind of dials. So that's what I think made it successful. We were able to detect different models and makes. Also, we had like a fallback list of all the boilers. So in case our AI couldn't detect it, we asked the customer to label the boiler, and then we could retrain it. So the next iteration was a lot more accurate. But yeah, again, this can be achieved with any sort of asset recognition. So we could use, for example, you could have a boiler, but you can also have things like different types of radiators. So it could be like whether it's electric or gas. But yeah, this can be applied to pretty much anything in the world.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think when we come to talk about some potential additional use cases, we've got some thoughts around how that could expand into thinking about, a total view of asset management and also around, total view of customer account management as well. So moving on to removing language barriers with AI assistance as well. So we know that language barriers can cause delays in terms of customer support, particularly if inquiries are raised manually over the phone. There's no reason in our day and age not to have a digital platform which supports customers having availability of service in multiple language. Now, Google Translate obviously is embedded into every platform that we build and likely embedded into every sort of user-facing platform that you use yourselves. Google Translate can get us to a certain point. I'm Welsh. Jan also has a different first language. Actually, Welsh is not my first language, but I do speak a bit of Welsh. But we know at first hand, a quick translation can be okay, but sometimes they can be best guesses, sometimes they can be inaccurate, and they don't necessarily support a really effective multilingual experience, which can of course then cause some problems in terms of how that's, translated language being attached to an inquiry from a customer that you've then got to kind of pick up and progress effectively. Now, NLP can be used here not only to interpret English, but also to interpret different languages and return responses in that chosen language. So if any of you are old enough to remember The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you'll remember the Babelfish, which was all about that kind of like direct translation in real time between two different spoken languages and each party understanding exactly what the other is saying. So effectively, that's what we're now able to deliver with the speech recognition aspects of AI. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So this goes back to Edison product or feature we built. So I always think of it as like a tenant's AI assistant. So it is something we can pretty much plug into anything. So it could be the tenant trying to search for the property. We could use that to basically handle the search logic in the background and then just display them with the properties available. But with the repairs, it is a bit more complex. So what we actually do, we could actually capture the audio using their native language. We do all the translations and then handle all the logic in English, which then spits out the output. So it could either be the SOR code or it could be the available appointment. We then use this output, which is pretty much a standardized format for any housing association. So that integrates nicely with any third-party API integration.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Jan. Yeah, that's really good to hear. So yeah, I think there's some key use cases there in terms of how different aspects of AI can be used to support some key use cases. And we've talked a little bit there in terms of things that we've already developed, things that we've got in the pipeline, which is very exciting. Obviously, if you'd like to hear more about how we can support you with your AI ambitions or explore how AI can support some of your key challenges as an organization, please do get in touch. I think Liv will be putting some contact links in the chat if they're not already there. Thank you, Liv. So what next? What else could AI help us with? So we've got a few thoughts here. So we've got some specific use cases that we're already delivering and working on, but we also wanted to think about the art of the possible in terms of where we go next. We've talked quite a bit today about image recognition as a particular area that we've been focusing on. And imagine if we could take that further and use that to assess every aspect of an uploaded image. So Jan talked earlier in the call about how the great thing about image recognition, LLP, is that it takes a relatively small amount of data to get to a point where these machine learning models can then just get better and better over time and become self-learning as the database of information grows around them. So actually, go with me. Phone's just ringing, sorry. So could we talk very much about kind of like single use cases around upload a photo of a problem and identify what the kind of single problem in that image is, but actually we could extend that and start thinking about what other things can we interpret from that image, what other things can we glean about the condition of that property, can we pick up information about other assets. If a customer is reporting a problem with their kitchen, could we actually infer information about a potential damp and mold risk from that photo, even though they're reporting a different problem? So moving into more of a holistic view of kind of the health of your home for your customers, but also that kind of really complete view of the health and condition of your asset, of your property. Now that can also then feed into planned maintenance programs. So how can we predict when we need to make key replacements like kitchens and bathrooms? How can we get ahead of anticipating need with customers? That's perhaps really, really key. In the past, we've also digitized lettings application processes for a number of customers, and we're now looking at how we can use AI to pull data from uploaded documentation, tag that data in the right way and pass that into internal systems to prevent you needing to then manually assess evidence and disregard data that you don't actually need to be able to hold on to. So again, delivering that more efficient experience, minimizing the human intervention needed. There will always be human intervention needed in these processes, of course, but allowing you to cover more cases more quickly, more accurately, more consistently, using these tools to support efficient working. And the initial example earlier from AI versus traditional computing is one we're exploring, using OpenAI to return answers to specific queries more accurately with a larger data set than your typical decision tree chatbot. And this could provide a more personalized experience for customers, which is obviously something generally people are expecting now more and more in terms of all the businesses, organizations that they engage with. And we're also thinking about how we could take image recognition further with live video feeds to use a combination of AI and AR, augmented reality, to detect assets in the home, to provide self-service guidance for customers who are trying to report issues, which might be their own responsibility to fix, or something that doesn't necessarily need someone to come out and visit the property, or at least give them pointers to temporarily address something while the repair is booked in. And we think back to something that most of you will have experienced during lockdown is actually that pulling back from being able to do responsive repairs and actually moving to just looking at emergency repairs. These kind of tools could then have supported delivering a really good remote customer experience and supporting customers in self-resolving problems where appropriate, of course. So there's almost endless possibilities when it comes to AI. It's about exploring these and testing them, seeing what works really well, what's going to deliver efficiency. Obviously keeping a number of key things in mind. So about keeping customers safe, reducing customer frustration, and obviously looking at where you get the biggest efficiency gain in terms of your operational costs. So we'd love to hear in terms of any thoughts that you have around AI, any questions that have come up today. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. Liv, do we have any questions coming through in the chat today?
We have one from Jonathan, and he's asked, how sophisticated have you found AI, and where does the divide between AI and where humans step in?
That's a really good question. I'll take the I'll probably give a really simple response, and then I'll let Jan talk in terms of sort of a more sophisticated technical response. As I touched on just before, I think with any of these processes where we're supporting customers, human intervention is always going to be needed. And actually the best use cases for AI are going to be around looking at where AI can support more effective and efficient delivery of services. So not replacing human interaction or human services, but actually how do we support those human beings to cover a larger caseload without any kind of detriment to the customer service. And actually the expectation would be that AI services would help us improve outcomes and improve customer service for your users by ensuring that there's more accurate data, that there's a bigger data set to work from in terms of interpreting information, and that actually processes can be made really simple and efficient for both the customer in terms of reporting a problem potentially, but also your teams in terms of having the right information to be able to interpret that problem or inquiry and be able to move that along through your process. Jan, any other thoughts?
Yeah, so I agree with Jenny. So I think the AI is not here to completely replace like the human being. It's more to be able to help and support. So essentially taking the pressure off. So if you think about repetitive tasks you do on a daily basis, that's something that AI could do. So you can focus on more interesting things that are part of your job. So I think that's what the AI should be used for, to bring in the efficiencies and basically be happy with what you're doing.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot today about kind of like customer service and asset management and customer account management use cases, but from sort of an internal process point of view, we'd also want to be looking at are there ways that AI can support effective content preparation and for your platforms? So we're in a process at the moment of working with a number of customers around rebuilding websites and portals, and actually or just auditing content. Actually, those are kind of huge manual tasks that that organizations have to look at. And actually, in terms of your onward content management, there could be a role for AI there as well, in terms of how do you create content that's really on point in terms of your brand voice, but also covering all the kind of key points accurately. Could give you a more consistent approach in terms of that content preparation as well, because AI models will learn and understand and have the benefit of your entire content set to be able to understand more about what's appropriate for your organization in terms of how you talk about your services, how you talk about how people can access what they need from you. So yeah, I think there's lots of different ways that we can potentially look at AI. I'm really, really keen to keep talking about this one, and it's something that we're actively looking at every day in the business. So yeah, no doubt there'll be more to come in that respect. Liv, any other comments or questions?
There isn't at the moment, but if anybody's got any that they want to pop in now, then we'd love to hear from you.
We are sort of coming up on the last few minutes of the call as well. So if there are no other comments, then we will, thank you very much for your time. Have we just had one more pop in, Liv, or is that counter still where I thought it was?
It was just thank you for Jonathan. Very interesting.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, hopefully that helped answer the question. But yeah, thank you very much for your time today. Hope that was interesting. If you're interested in learning more about how we're looking to use AI and potential applications for your organization, then please feel free to get in touch. As we said, we'll be sharing the output of today's webinar, the recording, in the follow-up video, and you'll also have access to all the historic hives as well. So please do dip into that and let us know if you find that useful. I think that's it for today then. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll hopefully see you on the next session, which is, Liv, do we have a date for the next one?
Yes, that is what I meant to put in the chat. Bear with me 1 second. The next session is on the 25th of May at 11, and we're focusing on developing digital solutions around customer needs, and we'll be joined by Stockport Homes on that one as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Liv. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Really good to see you, and take care. Enjoy the bank holiday weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.